Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Carly Stevens. I'm a teacher and author, and this is English Nerd. Today, I'm going to talk about To Autumn by John Keats, one of my all-time favorite poets. He wrote during the Romantic era of British poetry, and since autumn is right around the corner, I thought it was the perfect time to look at his poem that celebrates the season. All right, we're going to start looking at To Autumn by John Keats. I apologize for the super thin pages here. This is the Norton Anthology of English Literature, which I recommend. I studied from it and enjoyed a lot of the works here. We have a helpful note right off the bat about the inspiration for Keats to write this poem about autumn and how he was inspired after walking in a stubbly field, and he felt like autumn did not get the appreciation that it deserved for being such a beautiful season, even though it's characterized by decay and the ending of something. So it begins, season of mists and mellow fruitfulness, close bosom friend of the maturing sun. So right off the bat, we can start to hear a sort of meter happening. This is typical of Keats's poetry, his odes and his sonnets, and other poetry as well. There's a chanting kind of quality to it at times. This poem is one of the most beautiful uses of sound that I've heard in poetry. Not only the meter, but as you'll see, sound as in literally the alliteration and assonance and consonants in this poem. So he starts off addressing autumn, basically, season of mists and mellow fruitfulness, close bosom friend of the maturing sun. We get those M's repeated. The sounds that Keats is going to repeat here are sleepy sounds that he really likes to use in a lot of his poetry, but just keep your eye open for that. Conspiring with him how to load and bless. So the sun and autumn are conspiring to bring things to maturity. So not just to bless in general, but to bless with fruit the vines that round the thatch eaves run, to bend with apples the mossed cottage trees, and fill all fruit with ripeness to the core, to swell the gourd and plump the hazel shells with a sweet kernel, to set budding more and still more later flowers for the bees, until they think warm days will never cease, for summer has o'erbrimmed their clammy cells. All right, a few things I want to point out here. We have some lovely parallelism with the infinitives here. So conspiring, to bend, to swell, to set budding. It's this list, this catalog of all the beautiful things that the kind of hot part of autumn accomplishes by bringing everything to this kind of hot fruition. Basically, we have the fruit being filled with ripeness to the core. We have the gourd growing, we have the hazel shells becoming plump, we have the flowers growing, and this sense that everything has this perpetually warm feeling. Of course, that is about to change. This is the beginning of autumn, but this is when summer really gives way to autumn. The clammy cells, by the way, refers to the bees, and so we have this summer honey that's kind of overflowing. So we have a sense of absolute abundance in this first part with the list, with this lovely language of cataloging all of the accomplishments of summer going into fall, which brings us to the second stanza. There are three in all. Who hath not seen thee oft amid thy store? Now this is interesting because all of a sudden we have a thee. Thee is going to be autumn personified into an almost deity-like character. This is something else that John Keats really liked to do. He liked to talk about, gods and goddesses, demigods, deities, and kind of explore that mythology. And so here he's dipping into that same penchant that he has for that sort of style. So, who hath not seen thee oft amid thy store? So, store here doesn't mean like a place that you walk into and buy things. Store is, your wealth, your abundance, what you have stored up, more so, is what that means. So we start directly addressing Autumn with that question. Sometimes whoever seeks abroad may find thee sitting careless on a granary floor, thy hair soft lifted by the winnowing wind. This is a beautiful image. It reminds me of paintings by Bouguereau. You have this lovely image of a woman is kind of the idea that immediately comes to mind, but it's not necessarily so. But we have this hair being lifted by the breeze as they sit on this granary floor. Once again, the image is not something that feels like an everyday activity, but more like this iconic deity-like character, and how Autumn is like this person that just revels in the abundance and then the end of the harvest here. Or on a half-reaped furrow, sound asleep, drowsed with the fume of poppies, while thy hook scythe, as you can see the note there, so again, harvesting, spares the next swath and all its twined flowers. So we have a second image here. The first one, we have Autumn as a character sitting on a granary floor, just appreciating the feel of the breeze. The second image we get is someone who is sound asleep in the middle of their work of harvesting, asleep with the fume of poppies, which is actually opium. It's something that a lot of the romantics partook in, and you'll hear it referenced pretty often in their poetry, actually. But again, abundance, drowsiness, and then looking at this last bit. Sometimes, Autumn, you appear like a gleaner that dost keep steady thy laden head across a brook or by a cider press with patient look. Thou watchest the last oozings hours by hours. So we have a gleaner, somebody who gleans, who once again harvests, but now it's someone who is watchful, who is steady, who patiently watches the quote-unquote last oozings hours by hours, the time really ticking away. The image is very much like that cider press, where there are the oozings that are coming out from that, but it's sweet. You have to be patient, but then there's this beautiful completion to that waiting. Okay, so a few things about this stanza here. We still have the meter. We see pretty clearly in this stanza that it's iambic pentameter, at least by and large. So, who hath not seen thee oft amid thy store? A very common meter, but one that really holds together a lot of sonnets and traditional poetry. Makes it easy to memorize for people. So there's that. I also want you to see that there is that alliteration that I was talking about, or those repeated sounds, not always at the beginning of words, but sometimes within them. And so we have at the end, for example, this ow sound that's repeated at the end. So we have thou, ours, ours. So we had M's up here. We have the ow sound over here. Just these sleepy, to me they sound like autumnal sort of sounds compared to a harsh like T or K or CH, for example, being a little bit more on the harsh side. Last thing about this middle stanza is that we have the romanticizing, literally, of this slow time, of a time when things are not fully in bloom. They're not perfectly manicured like gardens. They're running wild. We have the last oozings. We have somebody falling asleep at their work. In the previous stanza, we had the honey just overflowing. We have all these fruits and foods coming to full maturity, but that means that they're going to die, they're going to end. And this is something that mattered quite a lot to the Romantics. They loved nature. The first and second generation of British Romantics loved nature, but there was a lot more focus on the wildness and unpredictability and supremacy of nature over humanity than you saw in previous generations writing about nature. More often it was the conquest of nature, the beauty of nature when it was orderly, that kind of thing that they would talk about. But instead, when you get to the Romantics, they feature things that you would not normally feature, like autumn over the summertime, for example. Shakespeare wrote about the summer, Keats wrote about the fall, and things are dying. And he addresses that kind of discrepancy here, where there's a lot of talk of spring, a lot of talk of summer. Sometimes winter can be a metaphor for negative things because it's cold, or, the trees are dead, for example. But autumn really doesn't get its due for the beauty that it has. So, stanza 3. Where are the songs of spring? Aye, where are they? Think not of them. Thou hast thy music too. Once again, addressing autumn directly as if it's being personified. While barred clouds bloom the soft dying day and touch the stubble plains with rosy hue, then in a wailful choir the small gnats mourn among the river sallows, borne aloft, or sinking as the light wind lives or dies, and full-grown lambs loud bleat from hilly bourne. Hedge crickets sing, and now with treble soft the redbreast whistles from the garden croft, and gathering swallows twitter in the skies. This final stanza, it seems to me, is just an absolute love letter to autumn, the beauty of it, and the beauty is partially due to that soft dying day, that light wind that lives or dies, the gnats mourning among the willows, as you see here. There's a sense of melancholy that coats all of autumn, and Keats is not saying that it's beautiful. Despite that, he's saying that part of the beauty comes from that sense of ending. Autumn has its beauty, just as spring has its type of beauty as well. So there you go, a few thoughts on To Autumn by John Keats. I hope you enjoyed that summary and analysis of To Autumn by John Keats. As ever, if you're writing a paper, doing a presentation, anything like that, make sure to cite me and do your own investigation as well. Don't just take the words out of my mouth, but there's a lot more to dig into if you want to, and I encourage you to do so. I love this poem. I hope your appreciation grew with understanding a little bit more about it. Hopefully you learned something that you didn't know before, or noticed something that you didn't see before. If you would like more resources for English class, then head on over to my website, carly-stevens.com, where I have plenty of additional resources for English teachers, in particular to teach poetry, entire units like Shakespearean sonnets. So definitely check that out. If you have any questions about To Autumn by John Keats, you can put those in the comments down below. Otherwise, like this video if you like it, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you next week. Bye.